All right, traders. So we talked about the narrow state in the last lesson, and we're going to talk about the trend state now. So the trend state is the transition between the narrow state and the wide state. We'll be learning about the wide state next. So the trend state. Now, if I bring in my little group here of my analogy deal here, we are really looking at the wave in its power, where it has its most power. And I showed you photos of the wave. Let's see if I think I still have that here. Oh, here we go. So the wave has its power in this angled, you can almost see it's a similar angle, 45-degree angle here. That's where the surfer gets the power. So that's the power we're dealing with in this wave here. Now I know it's a bit of an analogy, but that's really the idea. Look at how this wave, or this moving average here, let's get rid of the group. This moving average is the 200 and it's flat. And the angle of the 20 off the 200 is what we're interested in. This angle is where your power is. There is no power when they are flat together like this. That's not the power. The power wave is when they're moving. Well, of course, obviously, how does it even move like this? It's because it has taken off. And I explained that in the last video, that the moving average pulls the market pulls the moving average up because it's looking back, in this case, 20 periods. So every time it makes a little progress, it's going to pull this average up. And if it's making a lot of progress, then it's going to really have an angle compared to the progress of the 200. So as it looks back 200 periods, the average is not going to be as strong as this is. So this is your little spike compared to the last 200 periods. You're getting a spike in market activity, so a spike of volatility. So that's what we're trading. We're trading these spikes, and they happen on every time frame you can think of. Well, the trend state is the transition of this spike between where it was fairly stable for a time into where it is then going back to kind of a sideways movement, what I call the beach. And this is where the market is either going to pull back and take off again, or it's going to collapse back into another trend going the other direction. And as I mentioned earlier, you may or may not want to trade this market going back. We're only concerned right now with this trend, the narrow state going through the transition into wide state. That's what we're concentrating on right now. But actually, if I'm really being honest, the trend state is here and it is here. So the trend state is anytime that we're transitioning from wide back to narrow or narrow to wide. I have to be very specific about that. When I talk about trading as in a beginner level, we're really talking about trading only the trend state here. So the wave is the 20, but where we surf the wave is the trend state. Now, the market will have its power to resist breakage of the it will bounce off this trend state while it's in this angle. While it's in this 45-degree angle compared to the 200, the market will tend to want to bounce off of this, and this is where we get our surfing. We're going to go out, we're down the face of the wave. It's going to pull back, bounce, pull back, bounce. In this case, we got essentially one big thrusting move here, and then it's pulling all the way back. If you watch my lesson on charts and patterns, you can see that this is now a larger degree, and you're going to have to go into the next module, or in a couple of modules, you're going to see charts and patterns in degree. But what's really happening here is this is probably some sort of an A wave with a big pullback. That would be wave B, and then you've got your wave C. So in this case, you don't get a lot of trend surfing that's going on and on and on like you would see in the S&P 500, where it bounces, the market, let's bring in the market here, where the market bounces off the 20. Let's show you here. The market is riding the 20, riding the 20, riding the 20, bouncing, bouncing, bouncing off the 20. You can see that riding, riding, riding the 20, riding, riding, riding the 20. You're not seeing that so much. I think we were in XRP. You're not seeing that in this case. It's staying well off the 20. And what we're going to learn is this is now a separation. This is what we would call a double wide. So when you have this separation and what I call an air gap, when this air gap here is here, and you have a big air gap here, this is what I call double wide. So in this case, you'd be aware that the market has pulled away from the 20, and we are only trading when the market is near the 20. So in this case, the market pulled back, and it didn't give us any entry signal no power wave, no entry signal to get back in the market, and it collapsed through, and that was the end of it. So this was the beach in this case. Not always will you get a surfable where it bounces all the way or it pulls all the way back to the 20. And like I just showed you, sometimes they're just super strong power wave. And that is very indicative of an A wave of a larger degree. Pulls all the way back, very strong pullback, and then a finishing up move. So this is very likely, and you're going to learn this in the pattern videos. This is probably a flat. A flat pulls back more than 61%, and then it finishes out. So, you're looking at something like this. Power move up, a move down, could have ended here or here, and then a move up. Now, the 20 is going to be tracking all of this, and there may be tradable opportunities in here. This was obviously coming from a narrow state and breaking out. This is just about as textbook as you can get here. You had a breakout, power move breakout here. We're going to learn about these power moves and these breakouts. We're going to teach you all of this. But you had a power move breakout, and this is step one of the trading process. There's a whole nother module coming where we're going to learn each step, but we're going to sit in the lineup in the narrow state. We're going to jump in this power wave, and then we're going to trade the trend state. We're going to trade this wave while it's in an angle. While it's in an angle, we're going to trade this. But as it pulls away during this, we're getting very concerned that we're done, and we're going to be taking profits here. This particular move right here is an exit signal. We haven't learned about those yet, but I'm just telling you, this is a very strong exit signal. So we would probably go some sort of bar by bar, or however we wanted to move ourselves up here. We could do a trend line. You could draw a trend line across here. You could go bar by bar, but as soon as you see this, you better be very concerned that this thing is on its way out, and we'd get out here, and we would look for whether or not this is a short-term pullback, with a possibility that this, it's possible that this could have gone. This could have gone A, B, and C. But in this case, it didn't play out like that. And one of the things we're learning in trend surfing is sometimes the beach will be here, and sometimes the beach will be farther out. But our entry signal never showed up here, and the whole market just kind of fell apart. And so we call that the beach. It's over. It's dissipated. That was the end of this. This move was very straight and direct. Normally we would see some subdivision, but in this case, it's a much larger degree. So our subdivision came all the way down here and then gave us a big ABC pattern. So that was let's see, that's XRP on the 2-minute chart. And I used this, I think, in my other narrow state video, but we were concentrating on the trend state. Now let's look at the trend state without the market. And let's just look at trend states on this 2-minute chart. This would be a trend state with a cross. We're not looking about entries and exits here. We're just looking at the trend state. Here we have an angle. Actually, what we're really looking for is an angle to the 200. So if we were to look at this is an angle to the 200. It's kind of interesting. This entire move is kind of parallel to the 200. It does angle come back, angle come back. Let's see what the market actually looks like. So this is pretty good. This is a really good trend surfing market, but it is pulling that 200 down with it. Very strong down market. This entire thing is very strong. Ideally, you would like to see the market pull away from the 200. So if this was the 200 in blue and this was the market in, this was your wave pulling away from the 200, this is going to be a very strong move. In this case, the 200 was kind of doing this, kind of catching up and keeping up. So it was somewhat parallel, but you can see these angle. And we're going to talk about, as we move along here, we're going to talk about some of these are re-entries. You can get back in. If you got out, you can get back in. As this market is angling down, as this market is pulling down, these are, these are re-entries, and you're just going to be surfing this and riding this. We're going to learn how to do all of that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's look at a different market. Let's look at NVIDIA. And we are on the 4-hour chart. Let's get rid of the market itself. It's a bit of noise. And let's look for trend waves, or trend state rather. Here is a trend state where we have a 200 period moving average. Let's make this a little bigger for you to see. You have a 200 period moving average, and the wave is at an angle. So that's ideal right there. Now this is a cross. It didn't come from a narrow state, but this would be allowable. This is a cross, and what you're going to have is the market starting down here somewhere. Let's get rid of this, and let's just look at where the market started. There may or may not be an entry right at the cross, but there may be an entry as it comes up here. We now have our trend state, or we have our angle compared to our 200. So let's see where the market started, and then let's see if we had an entry here. Now this would be considered wide state. We're going to talk about that in the next lesson. It's not very wide, but it is wide compared to the idea of being narrow. It's no longer narrow. This would be narrow here, parallel, and then it pushed away. You see this angle right here? Let's look at this one. You see this angle? This angle is your trend state compared here. So on a minor degree, this was a tradable event where you had your angle. So in this case, let's just look at this in a coastline analogy. This is your deep water. I just want to get your mind thinking the way I'm thinking. This is your deep water. Now this is a small degree, because if I zoomed out, you're going to see this is a tiny little move. But this is your deep water. This is your wave. This is, let's put that in orange. This is your beach. And we don't know quite why it ended there, but we would be able to look at the candles and determine that. Let's put that in our kind of reddish color that we've been using. So our trend wave, our trend state is this angle down compared to the flatness of the 200. So let's look at that. Let's hide the, let's hide this. Can I do that? Let's do that, and let's hide that. Okay, and then let's hide the 20 and the 200. So this angle compared to the 200 is what you're looking for. Now you notice that both of them are headed down. That's a nice strong indication that you should be, trading things that are red. And if there was a green that popped up and the red took it out, trade away. Here you have things that are moving in green. Green, green, green. If a red pops up and a green takes it out, keep going. Green, 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 green. And at some point you're going to hit the beach, right? So let's bring our market back in and bring our 20 and our 200 back in. And let's go the other direction. Now, again, this was a cross. We've been talking about narrow states. Of course, we'd like to have a narrow state. But let's see if, oh, we didn't even look at the market on this one. Let's look at the market before we do this. This is from the deep water going to the beach. The wave is going to the beach. Let's see if there was even any tradable anything here. It's a big mess, isn't it? But let's just see. We were in a bit of a narrow state here, kind of parallel. This whole thing was kind of parallel. Let's see if I don't want to get into every candle here, but it did break out, obviously. It broke out, pulled back to the 20, had another move down, and now your huge green bar here is taking out a lot of bars. This is a powerful move back to, so you're very wide here. Let's look at this. We talked about going wide. We're in double wide here. That's air gap. There's another air gap. So as you get into the, so you're surfing down, pulling back, surfing down. As you get into the, you're very wide off the 20 here. As you get very wide with these air gaps, what I call double wide, you're starting to look for any kind of an indication that this is done. It's highly likely that you could trade this with a moving stop, bar by bar. So your bar, 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 and you know, maybe you got stopped out here. Maybe you allowed that to, you know, you could do every other bar that keep you in a little longer. But bottom line is you're going to get, you know, you're going to get stopped out at some point and you're out. And this is your big, strong move up. Maybe you want to get in here, maybe not. It just depends, you know, but this is where it started down here. And so now let's look at swapping this back. Let's look at what we're doing here. We're now going the other direction. Our trend state is now up here. So we had a trend state over here, transition from narrow to wide. Now we're transitioning back from, well, narrow-ish. This is a cross, not technically narrow, but now we're going back to wide. We haven't talked about wide as a lesson yet, but you're starting to get the idea. So let's see how this looks. So this is your trend state, this angle to the 200. And you could get in on pretty much any one of these changes. So you had a red here that gets taken out and you're in. Here's another red that gets taken out and you're in. You know, go bar by bar, and then that's the end of it. So you can take these entries along the trend state. At some point, you're going to be far away from the trend or from the wave, and you do not take entries out here. You don't take trend entries out here. You take entries that are near the 20. So you'd want to take an entry near the 20, and you'd want to take an entry near the 20. But as the market moves away, 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 we don't take entries anymore out here. We're going to let it pull back. And in this case, it pulled back, broke through the 20, and we may or may not want to take this again. This has gone narrow here. So we learned about that in the last lesson. This has gone narrow and is now going through a trend state into wide. Now this is subtle, and we may or may not want to be bothered with this. We may got spooked by this and said, well, you know, I don't know, this whole thing's starting to get a little wide here. We may just be done with this right here. That we got our little bit here, and that's it. Or you might say, well, no, you know, this went narrow. It's going to go for another run. I'm going to give it a try, and maybe we get some of this. But you get the idea. We're talking about we're talking about trend. We've talked about narrow. We're going back into trend. And at some point, and this is, let's see, this is May 27th, and this is the 4-hour chart on NVIDIA. So let's just take a quick look at NVIDIA, and let's hide this stuff here and get rid of that. Where are we in NVIDIA on the 4-hour chart? Are we in a buy? Should we be buying NVIDIA right now? I would say there's no entry in NVIDIA right now. We are coming from a wide state. If anything, our trend is trying to come down. And if we continued to do this for a while, our new trend state would be down on the 4-hour chart. Now, I'm not saying you can't buy NVIDIA on the monthly chart or what some other time frame, but on the 4-hour chart, this is not any kind of a buy right here. You're starting to see that? I mean, I could even draw a channel here and just say, A, B, C. I mean, we haven't broken out of this channel. The whole thing's heading down. We're going from wide back to the back to narrow, or trying to come back to the 200. There's nothing here. So don't think, well, it's come back. Let's just jump in. We're done doing those. Those days are over. We are going to follow some rules. We're going to be trading from narrow to wide and from wide back to narrow. So in this case, we are in a downtrending state. I'm sorry, a down power. Let me see the word I'm looking for. Trend wave. Our trend wave is down. Our power is down. And we have not seen any indication that the power would go back up. What would it look like if the power went back up? It would start to look like this. These power moves. These are power moves. So this is probably, I'm going to tell you right now what this probably is. This is probably some sort of an A wave power move, start of a small degree pattern, little backing off. This is probably a little C wave. And it's very possible that this could power out of this, but it is not an entry of any kind to the upside yet. So if this broke out of this channel on the 4-hour chart, wouldn't surprise me at all, but it doesn't mean there's anything tradable here. So what was tradable? The trend wave up, and now we're done. We're really wide here, and we're going to see let this thing kind of recoalesce, kind of compress again, and then we can look at trading NVIDIA on the 4-hour chart again. But right now, there's no trade on the 4-hour chart, at least not in the bull variety. I would even say that on the 4-hour chart, you could technically trade this to the downside. You have a wide state going back to narrow. You have some entry signals and some entry signals. So it's possible that you could trade wide back to narrow, and you do have a channel that hasn't been broken. So I don't want to overthink this, but if there was a trade here, it would be to the downside. But let's not overthink that or try to get too much into teaching all the entry signals yet. We haven't even gone over those yet. We've got a whole module on entries and exits. Let's just keep focused on the wide state, Rich. I'm sorry, on the trend state. Okay. I tend to want to teach everything in every video. So that's what I call the tyranny of the expert. Okay, let's see. Let's look at, here's XOM. This is ExxonMobil. Now, currently, ExxonMobil is set up in a 2-chart scenario. And if you wanted to get rid of that, you go up here and you click on this little button right here, go to 1, and then you can hit save. And now I'm back to 1 chart. Let's bring in our 20 and our 200. We've been looking for trend states. Where's the trend state in this chart? And let's make it a little darker so you can see it. If I go to my gear icon, click on this, add a little thickness, go to this one, click on this, add a little thickness. You guys are getting better at this. You'll learn TradingView pretty quick. You'll start going quick. All right, so where's my trend state? Well, obviously it's right here. I got a trend state coming down, transitioning to wide. I'm going wide back to narrow. Let's see. This is the monthly chart. This is ExxonMobil on the monthly chart. If I get rid of my market and I just look at the moving averages, can we find a trend state? Here's a huge trend state that lasted forever. Trend, backing off, trend, backing off, trend, backing off. Let's look at that a little stronger. So this is trend, backing off, trend, backing off, trend, backing off, all climbing the 200. And if we look at the market, bring in the market, we have the market riding that 200 all the way. And you'll notice it does at some point penetrate the 200. So the 200 is not necessarily an absolute must get out of the market every time it cracks the 20. I'm sorry, I meant the 20. It's riding the 20. Every time it cracks the 20, do I get out? Well, let me bring in one more moving average just to show you one thing on this in this trend state. Since we're talking about trending, this is what we were going to be trading. I will bring in one more moving average, and that is the 50, to sort of set up a zone. And we're going to learn about all this in another lesson, but let's just set up this 20. I use this color, same color as the beach, really. And let's just look at how the 50, oops, let's see, that's the 9. Let's put that on 50. It comes in, anytime you add a moving average, it's going to come in at 9. So that's better. Let's make it visible. Let's see. Okay, now we're good. So you can see that the 50 acts as a zone, like a no-go zone. And here, when the market kind of went narrow state, kind of comes together with the 50, it broke the 50. But here, it was riding the 20, it never broke the 50, came into the zone. We had some entry signals in here, came into the zone, some entry signals. And so you will be learning about how we can ride the 20. And as long as it doesn't break, if it comes into the zone between the 20 and the 50 and we get some entry signals, we can continue on. And now it's starting to break down, breaks through the 50 and the 20, and we're really out of here. And then it resumed. But here is the beach. We rode let's just look at this. Let's just break this one down. This is ExxonMobil on the monthly chart. Let's just bring in some, let's see, where is my deal? Why is this missing? Oh, here we go. You see down this star down here? This is your favorites bar. In my case, I couldn't find mine, so I just click on this star, and there's my favorites bar. And I can dock it wherever I want. It's not really docking, it's just kind of resting it there. Okay, so let's bring in our coastline. We're going to bring in the beach is up here. You can see how it kind of petered out on the beach. Now, I'm not saying it won't resume, but there's all kinds of exit signals in here, and we're going to go over those later. So let's bring in the wave here. This is our trend state. That's the purpose of this video. I know I kind of go sideways on these videos sometimes, but I think hopefully you're enjoying the fact that we get into a little bit of trading and we get into a little bit of coaching and we get a little bit, as we're learning, sort of keeping our focus on the idea here is that the trend state. We've got our narrow state here. This was the lineup where the surfers sit. In our next module, we'll be going over the steps. Step 1, be in the right location. So we've got our wave. What are we missing here? We're missing our deep water. Deep water ocean. We don't surf in the deep water. There will be times when the market will bounce off the 200, and we'll talk about that. But right now, we're looking for this kind of movement over here. And then we've got What else do we have? Oh, let's just show we're moving into the beach. All right, there you go. There's your coastline. You're able to get in. There's not really a power move so much here, but there is an entry. The market starts pushing into a trend state, goes from a narrow state between the 20 and the 50. The 20 and the 200 are narrow or parallel here. And what do we have? We have a color change here with a set of trend bars, and our entry can be right here. There's no reason why we can't get in here. And then we're going to just ride this up. If we were to get in right here and we were wrong, and it's okay to be wrong. I'm going to set my stop here. My entry was right here. Let's say my entry, I can enter on the tail. I can enter where it breaks the bar. Let's just say our entry was right there. Did we get stopped out? No, we did not. And we did not get stopped out because this was a powerful move that did not retrace. And so this is legitimate. And it just kept going, kept going, kept going. And I don't want to get into every little candle here of whether you should get stopped out or not, but let's just ride the trend here. Ride the trend, ride the trend, ride the trend into the beach. And here we're starting to really go sideways. And that's the beach. And we're done. And we'll deal with whether or not we get back in again. But right now, you're starting to get the idea, I hope, that we're going from the deep water. We're looking for our entry. We're able to ride the trend until it really just peters out, and we're out. What's this over here? This is risk a candle to make many candles. Risk a candle to make many candles. That's the idea here. So that's the trend state. And we've now talked about the narrow state and the trend state, which is the transition from narrow to wide or from wide back to narrow. And the power in the trend state is in its angle. When I say power, I mean its resistance to breakage. Let's see. Let's do another one over here. Its resistance to breakage, its resistance to being penetrated is in its angle. When the trend state goes flat and becomes narrow, it can be penetrated quite easily or much more easily. But when it's in this angle, it is difficult for it to penetrate because if you really think about why is it at this angle? Because of the strength, the strength, the strength, the strength, the strength. The buyers are in charge. So when you see this kicking off with an angle here, the buyers are kicking off in charge. And these larger moves, these larger candles are generally institutional buying. And they're telling the market, hey, we have a belief here that the market should be going up, and the institutional buyers are getting in charge. This is not happening because the moms and pops are getting involved. This is happening because larger and larger players are getting involved, and they're moving the market. You want to be in this market. When the market is flat, not a lot going on. All of a sudden it pops, and that's where you want to be. And this happens on either side. So let's move this up here. Either side, you're going to get your trend on either side. And this is where the market is bouncing, 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 bouncing. And that's your trend state. All right, so in the next video, we're going to talk about the wide state, which is the beach. And we're going to just kind of look at some examples of that. And then we're going to get on into the process itself, the 4-step process in the following module. So let's just get through the wide state next, and I'll see you in that lesson. Take care.